So hopefully this inspires you, and that's my goal for tonight. Yeah. Yeah. So with that wonderful thing being said, I would love to introduce you to our very, very first person for the evening, who a lot of you know very, very well, who was the former host of the playground, because I needed some hand-holding. So please give it up for Anastasis.
Good evening, everyone. Hello. Yes, Kali. Okay. So the story starts in September 1994. September 1994. He confirms. I was 11, and like every September, we had this trip that we would traditionally take as a family. We would go to my grandfather's village in the north. I'm from Greece. I'm from Athens. And my grandfather lives in the north of Greece, between the mountains. And in September, we'd take the whole family in the car, and we'd drive up to the north. So we'd spend a few weeks there, and it was a chance for me to sort of build a bond with my grandfather, you know, the two sort of like separated generations, the disconnected generations, to spend some time out of Athens, out of the city in nature, my mother to paint, you know, spend some time painting, my father to spend some time with his relatives. It was a chance for everyone to get out. Now September, why I'm specifically talking about September 1994, a few things have changed. My brother had just turned 18. So it's the first summer that he's like, I don't think I'm going to come to the village with you guys. I think I'm going to go to Mykonos with my friends. And he did. So he was out. Then my mother, as soon as my brother was out of the picture, she was like, I think I've spent enough summers in the village. So she was also out of the plan. And it was me and my dad left. And I was up until then I was a mommy's boy. So I would always go with mom. I was always side up with mom. Would always do what mom says. You know, always against, you know, siding up with mom against my dad. That was the family dynamic. But for the first time, I'm left in this dilemma. Like, what am I doing? And then for the first time, I say, you know what? No, I'll go with dad. And the more I insisted that I want to go with dad, the more my mom tried to convince me otherwise. She was trying to like pull. She was like, what do you? You don't want to be there in the village. It's boring in the village. There's no kids. There's like 7 kids in the entire village. What are you going to do there? What are you going to do 2 weeks? It's going to be boring. No. First of all, it's not a suitable environment for a child, she says. Like, there's a chicken running around in the kitchen. There is like mice. There's like the cats with fleas in their fur, like in the sheets where you sleep. There's mice roaming over the roof. During the night, they won't let you get, like, it's horrible. You really shouldn't go. And the more she was pushing, the more I was like, no, I'm gonna go with dad to the village. So I did. I went, and I had a great time. It was amazing. I had a great time. All 7 kids in the village were lining up in front of the door of the house, waiting for the kid from Athens, because I was carrying all of my gadgets with me, and I had like my Game Boy and my Discman, and I had like all of my like fancy stuff from Athens. I was like showing off. So you know, I had their attention, and then my grandmother was stuffing me food day and night because she always thought I was too skinny, so she was just kept stuff. So I had a great time, and it was one of those like sort of like lazy afternoons. It was late. The sun was like hanging low, and it was painting everything gold. And we were outside in the garden under the vineyard. Is everyone okay? We had one volunteer behind the bar. We lost him. What happened? So we were under the vineyard. We were picking grapes, and it was my grandfather, my father, and myself, the 3 generations, and my grandmother at the doorstep, and she was proudly observing the line of generations picking the grapes. And my father and my grandfather were busy gossiping about the rest of the village. So they were talking about the guy from the top of the village who bought a house, and the other guy who bought a horse, and the other guy whose goat died last week, and the other guy who married his daughter to the guy who bought a horse. So all the connections in the web in the village. And then one by one they ran out of subjects, and they ended up talking about the guy next door, the guy Kostas. And my grandfather says, did you hear about Kostas? Kostas who? Kostas, the neighbor. Kostas, the guy with the crippled son. My father says, what do you mean handicapped? My grandfather says, well, he's crippled. He is crippled. You know, his son is crippled. He's like, you know Kostas, he says. And he starts talking about Kostas and how Kostas has to dress his son every day and undress him, and how he has to bathe his son and clean his sheets. And he talks about how he has to put him on the wheelchair and carrying him around the village, carrying the shame of having a crippled son. My father says, must be tough. My grandfather says, tough. There's no worse thing for a father than his son to be a cripple or a faggot. I'm like, what is a faggot? I'm 11. I'm 11 years old. And I'm like, if a faggot means what I think it means, then this conversation might not be about Kostas' son, after all. But I sort of swallow back this little wimp that tries to escape my mouth, and I shut up, and the night falls, the sun sets, and the night falls, and I go to sleep. And I wake up in the middle of the night, and I have trouble breathing. And I turn on the light, and I see that my skin is covered in rash, and I go to the bathroom mirror, and I look at myself, and my throat has swollen up to the size of my chin. And I'm turning blue, so I wake up my father, they rush me to the hospital, they put the thing, the cortisone, the IV, everything. I calm down after a couple of hours, the doctor comes in the room. He says, first question, he says, did he come in contact with any animals? My father says, there's cats in the house, but he's not allergic to cats. The doctor says, you brought him in with an anaphylactic shock, there's cats in the house, maybe he's allergic to cats. My grandmother says, no, the cats are clean, don't worry. My grandfather says, what is allergies? What is this? My mother on the phone is like, I told you so. I told you that something like this would happen. Why don't you ever listen to your mother? And then, she goes on, like mothers do. Bring him back immediately, back to Athens. So I'm being sent to Athens, and the story starts. Next week, we're visiting a friend's house. Oh, Mr. Fotiu, I'm sorry, Mr. Fotiu has cats. Yeah, I'm sorry, Anastasis had an anaphylactic shock last week. He's allergic to cats. And then 2 weeks later, I want to visit a friend's house, and his mother has cats, and my mother doesn't let me. And then like this, 20 years of my life pass, and I have all the symptoms. Like I have a running nose, and I have itchy skin and itchy eyes, and I'm suffering all the symptoms. And 20 years pass like this, like hiding my face in my palms. It's always sneezing and always trying not to disrupt, not to bother. Always reaching in my pockets for snotty tissues. Always have to explain myself again and again and again. Oh, you're allergic? Oh, really? What happened? When did you know? How did you know you were allergic? What are the symptoms? Did you try anything about it? And I have to explain myself again and again and again. April 2015, my first King's Day. My first King's Day in the Netherlands. Everyone familiar with the concept of King's Day? If you have, no? Did I hear a no? No? You can ask the person next to you. Yes, exactly, explain. Very good, yes. King's Day, yeah? We all got it? Good. So it's my first King's Day in the Netherlands, and I've just moved here, and I'm very excited about it. Very excited. I've researched all the good parties. What's the best places to go on King's Day? Who are the best people to hang out with? I keep asking, I make plans and all of that, and King's Day comes. And I do what people do on King's Day, I take drugs and I go out. I go out of the house, and long story short, I make a friend. And I make a friend the way you make friends. We meet and we go to my place and we start listening to music. I put on my favorite music, he puts on his favorite music. We talk about holidays, vacations, we talk about school, we talk about university, we talk about friends, relatives, we talk about pets. I say I'm a dog person, much like you. He says I'm a cat person. I say I'm allergic to cats. He says, how so? And then I find myself in the same position that I have to explain all the things. And I said, listen, I'm going to tell you a story, and then you tell me what you make of it. So I tell him the story that I just told you. September 1994, grandfather's village, the whole thing. Only this time, while I'm telling it, I don't know, maybe it was the drugs, I don't know what it was, the connection with a new friend, but as I'm telling it, I start looking at it through different perspectives. So I'm telling the story and I look at it through the eyes of my mother who's discouraging me from taking the trip. And then I see it through my grandfather's eyes who brings up the subject, and the way my father reacts and the way my grandmother observes from the doorstep, and suddenly everything sort of clicks in my head. And I'm left with this question. Could this just have been a story? In other words, did I tell this story so many times to myself, and did I hear it back from other people that many times that I made it my story? It became my reality. But I'm way too high to answer any of those deep questions. So we leave it at that. That happened in April, May, June. I'm invited in Athens. I go to Athens to participate in a project there for the summer. It's the summer. I'm working in Athens. It's hot, so I have to wake up early and do as much as I can before it gets too hot. So I wake up early. I do all my laptop work outside in the garden while it's fresh. And I'm doing I'm sending my emails and stuff, and all of a sudden while I'm sitting there and I'm doing my laptop work, I see a cute little kitten climbing down a tree, and then sort of walks on the thing on the wall, and then on the table in front of me, and passes around my laptop and sits on me, on my lap, and just curls like this and starts purring. And I haven't touched a cat in more than 20 years, right? I don't know what do you do with a cat? What do you do with it? Do you pet it? Do they like petting? Do you like to be? I don't know. I had no idea. So I'm just looking at it, and it's just and it falls asleep in my lap, and I'm I take my phone and I start taking pictures of it, and then I send it to everyone on my contact list. And I say because I have no symptoms at all whatsoever, no running nose, no itchy eyes, nothing. So I'm I'm cured. This is a miracle, and I'm sending it to everyone. And then I put some food out to it and some water, and then the next day I take it to the vet, and I do all the things that you do to a cat to make it your cat, and everyone is very excited, and everyone is very happy for me. Everyone is very excited about this miracle that happened in my life. And they're encouraging me. Everyone, of course, everyone but my mother. Exactly. Exactly. My mother, who is still hesitant, who still can't believe. She's maybe it's just this cat. Maybe it's just this cat, and maybe the next cat will bring back the allergy. Maybe it's just because it's a kitten, and then when it grows up, it will bring back the... she's trying to find... And she doesn't even want to hear about bringing the cat inside the house. So she doesn't even want to hear about that. And at that point, I'm you know what? Fuck this. And I take the cat, and I go to a friend's house who has a beach house, and we stay there for a few days near the sea, and we go every day. We're swimming. I swim. He's sitting there at the beach, and he's just watching me disappear in the sea, and he just freaks out. And then we climb the rocks together, and then I take him with me to Amsterdam. I take him back with me, and we fly together to Amsterdam, and he lives in my studio, and we sleep together in the same bed, and I have no allergic reactions, nothing at all. And we cuddle and everything, and every morning he comes and he rubs his forehead against my forehead to take him out to the garden, all this stuff. Cute, no? And I know that some people, of course none of you open-minded Amsterdammers, none of you, but some people back in my grandfather's village might say that I sound a bit like a faggot. Not you, huh? But at least I'm not allergic to cats anymore.